So going live on YouTube and starting the webinar now. So we'll maybe give it 30 seconds just to get.
Hey guys, welcome to another Fireside Chat. This time it's the 1 Million Wallets RSK edition. And Brendan here is kind enough to share his wealth of knowledge in the space. And welcome, Brendan, to the 1 Million Wallet Hackathon and the Covalent community. Why don't we start with a quick intro? Tell me about yourself, what you do, and what are you passionate about?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, so I guess my background is as a software engineer. I've mostly dealt with Node.js, so backend development with JavaScript. And then my journey into the world of blockchain started with, I started this thing called the Decentralized Apps Development Club. So that was because here in Singapore, there were a bunch of blockchain meetups and they were mostly focused on price speculation, buzzwords around blockchain, etc. And they often glazed over the underlying technology. So I thought that was a bit of a miss. It was an unmet need. And I started a tech meetup. And then that led me to RSK. Here I am.
Awesome. You've been working at RSK for how long now?
Just over 2 years now. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm leading a team called Developer Experience at the moment. So it's, I would say it's a combination of developer advocacy plus some commercial aspects. Yeah.
Got it. And you're enjoying it so far?
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah. The tech is great. The team is great. Yeah, it's a really awesome place.
Awesome. So for those of us who don't know what RSK is, can you give us a brief intro to what RSK is?
Sure, yeah. Okay, so RSK is a layer 2 blockchain that is connected to a layer 1 blockchain, with that being Bitcoin. And not only that, it's not just using it for merge mining, but it's also connected in another way, which is that there is something called a POW peg, or proof of work peg, where you can swap one Bitcoin on the Bitcoin network for one smart Bitcoin on the RSK network, and vice versa. So the network and the main cryptocurrency of it is connected to Bitcoin. Then that's like one way to think about it. But then the other way to think about it is, if you're a developer who creates dApps or DeFi protocols, whatever, then you want to have something called smart contracts. And Bitcoin doesn't give you that, but RSK adds that as well. So you've got EVM level compatibility with the smart contract engine, and then you've also got RPC compatibility. So you put that all together, and what you've got is a smart contract platform which you can get up to speed really quickly if you're already an Ethereum developer or any other blockchain that's compatible. And you can generally do it within a day if you have that much experience. But then at the same time, you also have network level security that is, very high, roughly half of Bitcoin. So that's, the highest of any smart contract network. Yeah.
Got it.
So I can go into that a bit deeper if you need, but yeah, that's the top line.
It would be interesting, yeah. But so the comparative here would be just like how Polygon relies on Ethereum for security, RSK relies on Bitcoin for security, and so there's some kind of checkpointing mechanism where the state on RSK is snapshotted onto the Bitcoin blockchain. Is that roughly kind of what it's happening?
Yeah. That's spot on. I mean, the full details on how this is implemented is inside the RSK white paper. Now, the problem that Polygon has to solve is, I would say, significantly easier because that snapshotting or checkpoint mechanism is enabled by the fact that you have a smart contract platform on both sides, right? But with Bitcoin, you don't. So there's this whole additional level of complexity where you have smart contract capability on one side, and on the other side, you just got regular transactions. So how do you reconcile that? So there's some, I would say, crazy genius level engineering going on, all described in the RSK white paper. Some of it that is beyond me. But yeah, if you want to learn more about that, or have someone explain that to you, yeah, go check out docs, read the white paper. But yeah, but to summarize, yes, in a nutshell, the security of the network comes from merge mining. So Bitcoin miners, they say, hey, I also want to mine RSK and get additional rewards for the same hash power. And all you have to do is include an RSK tag, which is this sort of summarized or proof of the state of the RSK network. And you include that in a Bitcoin transaction and in a block that you mine. And give or take 50% of the RSK of the Bitcoin miners in terms of hash power, they merge mine with RSK. So roughly what that means is every 2 blocks, so every 20 minutes or so, you probabilistically will get one RSK tag in. So that's where that's the underlying basis of the security.
Got it. I do have one more technical question, but we'll leave that for later, just for my own curiosity. But the focus here is on the developer experience and DevRel. So typically, how are you engaging devs? Are you mostly marketing to existing Web3 devs, or are you launching campaigns to attract new Web2 devs into the space?
I would say it's mainly focused on existing DApp developers, but of course we welcome everyone. The way that I like to think about it is that how shall I put this? If you're a Web2 developer, right, then you can think of Web3.js, which is the most common front-end library, as just another library, right? It's just another JavaScript library to learn. And you can think of JSON RPC as just another HTTP-based API that you can use. So, like, just don't be so intimidated in doing that. Yeah, but what we've actually seen, in terms of traction, or what actually works is there is a sort of like both a push factor and a pull factor at play. So there are, how shall I say this? The pull factor is there's a lot of like assets in Bitcoin that are currently being underutilized, and if you want to use DeFi on Bitcoin, then we think, at least, the place to do it is on RSK, because the native coin or cryptocurrency on RSK is basically Bitcoin. There's a 1:1 peg. Yeah, so that's actually very attractive for Bitcoin holders if they want to do Bitcoin. So we actually promote this concept called DeFi and Bitcoin, and based on that, you've got DeFi protocols who want to build on RSK because of that. That's the draw, the pull factor. There's also a bit of a push factor going on, and this mainly comes from the Ethereum community. So what has happened, as I'm sure many of you are aware, is that Ethereum suffers from a lot of congestion, and gas prices have spiked very often. And what we're seeing more recently is that after the spikes, they don't come down all the way. So it basically comes down some of the way, and then that's the new plateau. And what happens with DApps is that their transaction volume goes down because it just goes down because users aren't willing to pay, $7, $10 per transaction anymore. It doesn't make sense to them. So they decrease their frequency of usage. So DApp developers see that and say, hey, I need to migrate to another chain where the cost of interacting with my application is cheaper, right? And then that was sort of like the initial factor, and then going further than that, the plateaus have persisted for long enough, like I would say probably around a year or more, thereabouts. And then you see the app developers saying, hey, I want to create a new smart contract based platform or the app, and I would like to go for Ethereum because that's the first thing that they hear of. But then when they actually do the math, they work out that my deployments are going to cost, several $100s when I deploy all of my different contracts. I don't want to pay that. Let's look for other options, and then they discover, other options. So we also are starting to see that group of developers coming over as well. Yeah. So I should mention, it just occurred to me. You mentioned Web2 developers, and maybe specific to this, this broader event, the 1 Million Wallets Hackathon that's going on. Brandon Roshan from Covalent gave a excellent webinar. I thought it was excellent, about the SQL stream. And yeah, I think that if you use that webinar and learn those skills, right, you are it's sort of like a very nice way to introduce yourself to blockchain, because you're dealing with Postgres databases and perhaps some Node.js APIs. You don't really even touch a blockchain directly, right? You're doing it indirectly through Covalent. And then, by doing so, you're onboarding yourself to conceptually what the blockchain does. So you will learn what events are, you will learn what transactions are, you will learn what, block frequency, etc. is, so that's, like a very interesting way to onboard, as a Web2 developer onto, this Web3 or blockchain space.
Awesome. Yeah. I will definitely share the shout out to Brandon. And I believe there were over 80 people who showed up for the SQL course. So for the audiences here, please take a look at our YouTube channel, and there should be a live stream or a recorded version of that. And it's one of the reasons we named our company Covalent. Covalent comes from covalent bonds in chemistry. And so we're this binding agent between the future decentralized systems with the current centralized systems. So we want to ease that transition. And by enabling more and more people to build on Web3 and experience the benefits of Web3, I think the world will just be a better place. And so really that's what the vision behind Covalent is, at least from an analogy perspective. Awesome. And then something else that you mentioned that struck a chord with me, or didn't strike a chord with me, is you said $6 or $7 for a transaction. I would love to pay $6 or $7 for transactions. It's more like $60, $70.
What is it now?
$60, $70. Yeah, it's not cheap.
Wow.
Uniswap is like $50. So it's very expensive. So no, I definitely feel the pain there.
Yeah, I was thinking in terms of just a regular transaction, like just transferring Ether from one account to another.
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe a simple ERC20 token transfer. Has that gone up more than $10?
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, absolutely. It goes up and down. It depends if there's an NFT drop somewhere, and then everything just goes up, right? So we do a lot of transactions. We do a lot of batch transactions, and we are very mindful of the gas effects. So especially it's like 50. If it's like $50, $100, it matters a lot.
Yeah, rule of thumb with RSK, you're looking at roughly 2 to 2.5% of when you convert your transaction fees to USD. That's roughly what you're looking at compared to Ethereum. So yeah, you can literally do several transactions under $1 if you're talking about
Absolutely.
simple token transfers.
So yeah, I think it's a form, if you think high level, expensive transaction fees is a form of censorship because it censors people who don't have the funds, right? It almost
Barriers to entry.
it excludes a large portion of the world who can benefit from this technology. And I think we should all strive to bring those transaction costs lower. Okay, awesome. And then let's talk about data accessibility challenges. Like what challenges are you seeing currently with the RSK blockchain? Let's talk about getting the data out. There's definitely the whole mining process and getting data onto the blockchain, the sidechain. But what are the challenges with getting data out, and how are people solving that problem today?
Yeah. Okay. So let's sort of start with like Web 2 and then shift over to the blockchain or Web 3 space. So with the Web 2 space, you've kind of got different companies with different databases, different schemas, different APIs, so on and so forth. Now with starting with Ethereum, adding RSK and several other EVM compatible blockchains, right? If you just focused on the data storage aspects alone, I know there's a lot of remarkable innovation in the whole blockchain space, but just since you've asked, like focused on the data storage aspects of it, because for the first time you've got a few new things, right? There's a system of different applications which are connected via not isolated or siloed backends and siloed databases, but a single, big entity. And this big entity has a standard way to store the data. If you want to if you want to think about it in terms of EVM opcodes, they use the same opcodes, and you can run the same storage patterns on Ethereum as you can on RSK and Polygon and so on and so forth, right? And not only that, the APIs are standardized as well, right? So these you've got RPCs, right? Which for the EVM compatible chains, they generally use the same RPCs as well. And then on top of that, you've got this concept of ABIs as well. So how you query event logs, especially, and how you call or functions and get data out of them. It's all like whatever works on one chain tends to work on the other, right? And this combination of being radically transparent because it's on a public ledger, like we inherited that from Bitcoin, right? Plus this new innovation of the smart contract platform. It's like you've standardized how data is stored, and you've also standardized how data is accessed, right? And you don't really see this in any other part of the tech industry in the Web 2 world, right? It's only in this Web 3 space where you see this kind of vision playing out in terms of data storage. So here's like a fun story, right? I was giving a guest lecture in SMU, which is a university here in Singapore, and not too long ago, one of the students asked me how difficult it is to build analytics on blockchain data, right? And the way that he phrased it, like it was sort of like implicit that he understood that it was impossible, impractical. Like he thought this putting stuff on a blockchain made it impenetrable and difficult, right? And I can see, why he has that, where that opinion comes from, right? It's a common one. But my answer was, some form of, what I just said earlier on. But then, I also added, because this was quite recent. In fact, we're working with a company whose core business is literally extracting and processing data from blockchain networks and making that easy to do for people who aren't familiar with blockchain technology. And I think you know who that is. Right? So so the interesting thing here was that Covalent was able to do this with not just with multiple smart contracts in a single blockchain, but also with multiple blockchains because they follow the same standards, right? So I was working with the Covalent team. They said they wanted to index some tokens, they wanted to index RNS domains, and it was just like, okay, so here's the address, here's the ABI, go. And then after that, there were literally like maybe 4 or 5 more questions, and it was all done. Like it was like you solve the problem on one chain, and then it sort of almost like it's too easy to solve it on another chain because you can reuse so much of the code because of all the standardization. So like if Covalent tried to do its same business model in a non-Web3 or non-blockchain space, you'd have a much harder time. Not impossible, but you wouldn't be able to achieve such record speed integrations with a completely new technology partner as you did. I saw this happen firsthand. So that's good job to you guys, but but also like it's enabled by the space, right?
Yeah, there's that's an excellent point. I do want to also annotate that with another point which is super crucial, and I think that's led to opportunities for companies like Covalent to emerge, and that is that the schema is fixed. So one of the challenges of legacy databases out there is that the schema is ever evolving. So a schema in time is not a fixed thing. So if you progress through time, through history, over years and years and decades, which is usually the case with legacy systems, the schema has changed, has evolved to meet the business requirements. But the evolution, the change management is not usually subpar, because it's they just deploy a change and then they forget about the change, and then new staff comes in and all of the processes is rebuilt over time. But on the blockchain, all of that is updated on the blockchain. Literally, the schema and the schema evolution is on the blockchain. And what that means is that we can go back to any point in time and rebuild the schema. So essentially, in a way, the schema never changes. And that's a very powerful concept because it requires you to put upfront thought into what the schema for your data structure should be before you even start writing to the blockchain. And that has made our life significantly better. If you look at a lot of the, they're called change capture systems. So these kinds of systems which synchronize databases, they spend a significant amount of time just managing schema evolution. And we've just not had to do that at all at Covalent. And that's like a little bit of insight into what's going on under the hood.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, that sounds like amazing that you don't have to deal with that level of complexity. Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. A second point I want to bring up is the unified API is our message to the world, right? So the Covalent API provides the unified interface to all blockchains out there, not just EVM compatible, but in the future we'll be indexing Solana and other non-EVM based blockchains. And I hope someday we'll go back to the 800-pound gorilla and index Bitcoin. That's I think it's kind of like it's not feature complete until we index that chain. And so one of the magical things here is that you mentioned about the ABI and the transactions, but the problem is that the schema of the ABI itself is not on the blockchain. It's elsewhere. It's on GitHub. It's on Etherscan. It's all over the place. So the advantage of Covalent is that because the topic hashes are calculated the same way, what we've been able to do is we've been able to build a rainbow table on our side that we can decode probably 40-50% of any event log on RSK without having the ABI. And then we have a custom ABI kind of format to upload the missing gaps, right? And we hope to open source this database of ABIs for the world to benefit, and also put it on the blockchain because that's just in line with the ethos. Right now, you have, it's almost like you find a tomb in Egypt and you go in there and you can't read any of the script because they're all in a foreign language. You don't have a vocabulary or a dictionary or some kind of translation mechanism. So, that is also something that's very, very interesting. Okay, so now I want to talk about RSK's go-to-market positioning. So one of the most interesting things about RSK, at least from outside looking in, is your access to the Latin market and your focus on the Latin communities, and that has actually inspired us to kickstart translation on our side. So a lot of our APIs, our documentation, all of that will be in Spanish very, very soon. So that's work ongoing.
Oh, excellent.
Also, yeah. So this is actually pretty important for us, right? That's the way we want to support partners. Another really cool thing that has happened, specifically for the RSK 1 million wallets, is that the banners were translated into about a dozen languages from day one. So we have this whole engine running, and this is the first time we've been doing it, right? So far, it's always only been English because we're mostly English speaking. But now that we have a very strong community, I'm seeing things in Indonesian, right? Things in Chinese, in Arabic, in Turkish, in of course Spanish and Portuguese, and all these languages, the same banner. So that's so cool to see how this is being more accessible to the world. So I'd love to learn more about your approach to the Latin markets. What is different from going into a traditional English-speaking market? Just take it away. I love to learn here.
Yeah. So I guess I would preface that whole thing with the fact that this, in terms of I guess attracting developers, right? It isn't really geography based. Like this, blockchains are 24/7 global by their nature. It's not like, I don't know, like a DeFi protocol that acts as an exchange. Is never off and it's available wherever you are in the world. It's not like like a stock exchange that only has business hours and it's only located in this one place and that kind of thing. So like from that point of view, right? Like where you are and what language you speak and all of that, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as much as it does in the sort of like the traditional equivalent of whatever you're doing. That being said, right, there's always a human factor, right? Like people need to hear about you. People need to know that know that you exist and be convinced that this is good enough to use, and they need to know other people. And this is quite crucial. They need to know other people that have already used it, and then they feel more comfortable themselves. Like the peer or social element of that cannot be ignored. So, for this reason, I think RSK has Latin America as its stronghold because that's where it's based. It's based in Argentina and Uruguay. It grew out of that. The communities grew out of that, and I would say it's in a very good place in that region, right? And it's something that we're trying to grow to expand elsewhere in the world. And right now we're focusing on Asia and specifically Southeast Asia. So that's why we've got translations for this hackathon. And thank you very much for doing that, by the way, in Bahasa, in Vietnamese, and in Tagalog, because those are really important to have besides English in this region. And yeah, and hopefully that brings people on board. The other thing that we need to think about is that this space is dominated by DeFi or finance, right? So a big part of that is having exchanges and having fiat on-off ramps, right? So this is where you can take a US dollar or whatever your local currency is and swap it for a cryptocurrency or a token on the network. And that kind of thing that tends to be very geography based and based on a particular country, and So that's another reason, right, to localize in these different markets, and that's a reason why we have this push as well. So we can't just say, okay, it's 24/7, oh, it's global, because that's what the tech is. Like the interaction, the off-chain parts of it are, quite a important thing to deal with as well. So yeah, like yeah, I yeah, oh yeah, and also like it's not just the banners, right? Like in this 1 million wallet hackathon, right? We have all those translations for the quests and challenges as well. So like you can do it in English, you can do it in Spanish, you can do it in like I think for this one there's like 9 different languages. So we haven't seen that before, and we're happy, like someone who isn't a native English speaker can just do it in their own language. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, in all fairness, all credit for that goes to the Alchemists, right? So that's our community. They're very, very passionate about Covalent, very passionate about their local communities, and the more accessible this tech is to their local geographies, everyone benefits from it. So it's pretty fascinating to see how this is emergent behavior, right? So we made a call out and said like we want to support RSK in these ways, and then they come up with a bunch of ideas, and they did all the translation work, and it's incredible to see. That's not something that you can buy, right? We can definitely go out there and get professional translators, but people who truly care about the technologies and about the adoption of these technologies, it gives you a different level of commitment, which I'm very, very inspired by. Awesome. Okay, so now we're almost coming up on time, so I want to be mindful of a Q&A session at the end. We have almost 100 participants, which is quite the banger for online, hardcore technical.
115.
115. So
Nice.
so I'm sure we'll have lots of questions. So one final question for you, Brendan, is that 1 million wallets in our purview is just the start of how we're going to be collaborating. These things are decade-long transformations, and we're going to be around. You guys are going to be around. There's no question about that. So what are it's actually a two-part question. Sorry. What are some potential areas of collaboration going forward beyond 1 million wallets that comes to mind? Of course, the product is live, the product is active, bug fixes, all of that was ongoing work. There's no question about it. But from a go-to-market, from a DevRel, from a excitement perspective, what else can we do to engage the two communities?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is the Alchemists, right? Which you just mentioned. So we definitely want to work together. In fact, I've already reached out to them. So I'll be after this event, we already are set to talk. Definitely think there's a lot of synergy there. We can in working together for sure. The other thing that I'm pretty excited about is that the basic level of Covalent integration with a new network is a Class A integration, which we already have set up and integrated prior to this event. But then there's also Class B endpoints, right? Which is where you have more specific things to specific sets of smart contracts or DApps that are on the RSK network. So we're looking forward to that, and in fact, we preempted it a little bit with this SQL stream plus a bounty that's tied to that. It's like, hey, build a Class B RSK endpoint, and bonus points if you use the SQL stream to do so. So definitely looking forward to that, either during the hackathon or even after the hackathon. So yeah,
pretty amazing.
Yeah. Any other?
Well, I would say something that we want to do next year. It's been quite challenging. So it's been a year and a half since I set foot on a flight. But something we want to do next year is we want to have a road trip, and we want to have a world around the world. So we definitely want to do something in South America, something in Southeast Asia, and would love to engage all of our partners. We have about 30 partners across the globe, and in fact, I've not seen a single person face to face, right? Because I've just been holed up here in Vancouver. And so that's something that will roll out, I would say, the latter half of next year in 2022. Just waiting for all the COVID stuff to be gone. And I think that would be pretty exciting, have live hackathons, have live events, right? I kind of miss that human interaction. It's been so long. And I think it'd be great to actually meet you in person and, share a meal with you and just like, let's let the creativity flow. I think there's a lot we can do going forward. So that is something I'm looking forward to, but,
Sure,
the COVID and all that stuff.
Roadshow sounds excellent. In-person events. Yeah, definitely miss them. Current group size limitations in Singapore are 2. So
Oh, wow,
you
okay.
aren't going to have a meetup with that. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, let's fingers crossed everything is resolved by next summer. And I'm itching to do this and engaged communities on the ground. So yeah, we'll definitely do the hop on, hop off. So Singapore, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia for sure. CoinGecko is one of our biggest partners in Malaysia, and then
Nice.
definitely China is its own thing. And then our Asia lead is starting next week. So we are definitely going to push hard into the Asia region. Of course, China is different, India is different. That's a tour in itself. Those are huge communities. And then, of course, South America, and then Europe. And then we seem to have a lot of supporters in Africa as well, Africa, Middle East. So yeah, so I think,
So
a month long.
basically.
Yeah, basically everywhere. Yeah, it's a global tour, right? Covalent is maybe we could take a bus and drive around. I don't know. We'll see. So they're all still a dream now, but I hope we can execute on that next year. Awesome. Okay, so now I think we're almost coming up. Let's leave the room for questions. And I believe Harish would jump back on to moderate the questions. So let me see if he's around, but if not, let's go to the questions. And wow, these flags are pretty amazing. People posting the flags.
I think everyone is here for the polls.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's another pretty exciting stuff.
I'm on the audio here. There's lots of POAP related questions, but there's a few here. I guess everyone, I don't know. Is there something going on with CQT with the price that's causing people to be a little bit excited? There's definitely some questions around that.
I'm a builder. I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, exactly. I had to look it up too to see what was going on. Let's see.
Oh, so there's a Q&A. Yeah.
I was just going to say there is this one question around sort of visual query analysis. So being able to, I guess, visualize transactions across multiple addresses and sort of the whole asset tracking mechanism. I don't know if that's something you want to address.
Sure. So let me read the question. Is CQT considering asset tracking now? For example, I transfer money from one wallet address A to address B, and then the transaction from address B is transferred to address C, and then C is transferred to address D. Through this tracing, visual query analysis is formed. So this is a great question, and this is why that SQL stream is so powerful. This is not something that we would support on the API layer because it's too custom, too bespoke. Maybe a class B endpoint that someone can build, right? In fact, the whole point of the SQL exercise is to teach people how to build these class B-like endpoints, but we're going to call it class C, which is the community built and the community moderated endpoints. And that would be a marketplace, and you would get rewarded for contributing, and if your endpoint get queried. So there's going to be a whole thing there next year. But this kind of question in SQL is extremely simple. So essentially, it's literally Venn diagrams, right? So you see all the outgoing transactions from address A, and then you see what is it interacting with address B. And then for those transactions, you figure out, and you get for all assets, right? That's the magic of Covalent. We index every transaction, everything on the blockchain. We're not exclusive to one specific asset or one specific transaction type. We just index everything. So you create that kind of list, and then you create a second list from B to C, and then C to D. And then you have the transitive feature where you can do the joins and make sure you just drill down to a particular subset. So this kind of analysis is powerful. For example, if there's a mixer involved somewhere in there, like Tornado Cash on Ethereum, which masks your transactions, you can flag those addresses as, privacy, I don't know. So if you're a person who's doing off-ramp, on-ramp, and then you're building automated services, then you want to definitely take an extra look at people who are using these privacy features, right? For good or for better or the worse. It's not. We're a data provider. We're not. We don't have a view on privacy. So that's an example. It's a great question, and that's why you should look at the SQL stream. There are things that the API can never do and will not do because it's very focused on a particular use case. But you can do this directly with SQL. In fact, maybe next session we'll actually give this as an example. It's very simple to do in SQL.
Yeah. Looking forward to that kind of thing being added, and I mean, it's eligible for one of the bounties.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lynn has another question. Are you considering launching at the largest sex market? Will CQT launch on Binance? So we don't comment on exchange listings. Okay. What other questions are there? How different is CQT from other tokens? What is it selling point? This is again a token related question. And then there have been a couple of questions on that have been answered. Awesome. Okay, Brendan, do you have any questions for our community?
Yeah, let's see. This is a tough one. What do you ask to a community? I guess in the context of this hackathon, I just like to know what everyone is planning to build, what they're keen on, building. I don't know if there's a way to answer that.
Yeah, usually we see I'm not sure if there's any overlap with the builders. The builders will be building. They won't be on a webinar. Usually that's what happens. Or if they want to watch this webinar, they'll probably watch this webinar on 2x on YouTube.
Yeah.
Right. That's they're very, very efficient with their time. So yeah, like every time we do a hackathon, we're blown away with the submissions. So I'm
a serious crowd here.
Yeah, these hackathons. In fact, Covalent itself started a hackathon. So
Nice.
I and a bunch of people just built this initial prototype for Covalent at a hackathon, ended up winning the hackathon, and here we are. So these hackathons are like are big. Awesome. Okay, so we're almost up on time. And Brendan, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for those very detailed and extensive answers to my questions. Very, very grateful for sharing your knowledge and experience. And thanks, Harish, for putting this together. We are always accessible. By the way, we have another community call, the Covalent community call tomorrow. That's Thursday. So, I'll see you all there. Until then, take care. Bye.